Hello everybody, this is Jesse from the STEM Center, and today we're going to be talking about math study skills. So we're just going to talk about some good practices for note taking, utilizing class time studying, and just practices that will help you maximize your success in a math class. And just a quick point, all of the things we're going to talk about are geared towards math, so the examples I'm going to use are geared towards that. But if you're taking some other STEM class, even if it's not a STEM class, the underlying principles and all of this can still apply. But just it's going to be geared towards the math environment. So before we really get started, here are some things to note about mathematics. So one, mathematics is difficult by nature. So if you're taking a math class and you find yourself, struggling, it's okay. That's just how math is. It's tough. Mathematics is also cumulative, so that's one of the reasons why it's tough. If you take an algebra class and you plan on progressing, into pre-cal, into calculus, a lot of the underlying principles and processes are going to follow you through that. So that's one of the reasons why it's just tough by nature. And the second one, to improve, you must practice. I'm not going to say a lot about that right now. We'll talk about that a little later, but just keep that in mind. And number four, really important one, your attitude has a great impact on all that you do. So I know the semester is going to be starting pretty soon. As you go into your classes, you want to just have a good attitude about it. Go into it with an open mind, a fresh mind, and so you can do your best. Now, let's talk about note taking. All right. So here are just a few questions that I written up. You can go ahead and pause it, but just be thinking about these questions. Ask them to yourself. Okay? So here we go. Note-taking practices. The first thing is you want to be organized. You want to have a designated space for each of your class materials. So your class materials are things like binders, folders, spiral notebooks, composition notebooks. And even today, I've seen a lot of students use digital notes. They take notes on an iPad, which is a very good way of doing it and also a very organized way. But whatever medium you use, just make sure that you're organized and you have a specific spot for your math notes. And you also want to take effective notes. So what does that mean? You want to be intentional with what you write. And I'll talk about this a little later too. You want to prioritize your understanding of the notes over the note taking itself. You don't want to get lost taking notes and you don't understand what you're writing. You don't want to take notes just for the sake of note taking. You want to understand what you're putting onto the paper. Okay? Now here are more practices. You want to structure your notes. You want to use bullet points to separate ideas and examples. You want to organize your notes by chapter, section, etc. So as you go through chapter 1, you might want to say here section 1.1, write your notes, and then you finish, and you want to start on a brand new page 1.2, and then you keep going. And you also want to use bullet points to break it down. So this picture to the right, I actually just found this online, but this is an example of what good notes might look like. They're organized, they're structured, they're nice and neat, and these would be easy to look back on later on. And one of the things you want to do when you take notes is you want to try to take them neatly so you can look back on them. That's the third bullet right there. You want to use your best handwriting too. You want to make sure that you can look back on them and reference them later. And you also want to color code your notes. You don't have to, but if you like colors, I think it's a good idea to add some spice into your notes. Put some colors. You want to use highlighter, color pencil, marker, whatever your fancy is. You just want to do this just to emphasize, important stuff and to be connecting dots in your notes. Now let's talk about class time. What do you do when you're in class? Here's some more questions again. Pause it. Think about them as we go through this. You want to prepare for each class. And one of the ways you can do that is by skimming through the textbook and your class materials. Now, you don't really have to look through your textbook before class and, try to master all this stuff and be an expert at it. You just want to familiarize yourself with the material. And you just want to anticipate any questions you might have. So you just don't want to go into class blindly. Now, this kind of bleeds into the second point right here. You want to review notes from the previous class. All of this is just to refresh your memory about what you've done, what you've learned, so you can know where you're going and anticipate the lecture. You don't want to go in here blindly, all right? And you also want to come to class prepared. You want to be there on time. That might be 5 minutes early, 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes is kind of a lot, 5 minutes early. And you want to bring all your materials and your notes. So you want to make sure you have everything, whether it be your spiral, your pencils, your calculator. Don't forget your calculator, your iPad, laptop, whatever you need. Because you want to get there, you want to give yourself enough time to set up, and that takes time. So just make sure that you're prepared before class. And these are some of the ways you can do that. Now, once you've gotten to class, how do I use it effectively? Here are a few tips. You want to be an active listener. So when you're, taking your notes, you want to listen to understand. You don't want to listen and just start jotting stuff down. You want to understand what's being said, and you want to watch for cues to identify important information. So if you're going through the lecture and your professor tells you that something's going to be on the test, you might want to note that down. Put a star, draw a little picture or something. Just make sure that you're being tentative to everything that's being said. And you always want to ask questions. Asking questions, can clear the air about something that might be confusing, not only to you, but probably to someone else across the room. And it also stimulates discussion. It might bring up another question that you didn't know you even had. Now you got two answers, right? And you don't necessarily got to be asking them all the time. But if you do have a question, it's best to ask it. If you don't want to ask it in front of the class, you can always meet with your professor and bring it up after class or go to tutoring, Those are very good options. And all of this has to do with being an active participant. You just want to be joining in on the discussion and group activities that might be going on. Be active and not passive, pretty much. And you want to make sure you attend every class. Every lecture is important. You don't want to miss any information. So if you're learning new material, it's a good idea to be present in class. Now we're going to talk about study skills. So here are a few questions just to think about again. So here's some good study habits. You want to review your notes often. You don't want to wait too long between classes to study. So let's do a little story real quick. Let's suppose you have class on a Monday, Wednesday, okay? And you leave your Wednesday class, maybe it's from 8 to 9:15, and you're feeling good, and you don't study all day. You don't look at the notes all day. That's Wednesday, and then you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You don't look at the notes. So that's 4 days, 24 hours. 24 times 4, that's a lot of hours. That's a lot of hours that you went without looking at your notes. And there's a very good chance that all of the material that you felt so confidently about is just spilling out of your head. So you always want to study pretty soon after class. If you have some homework, do it the same day. Look at your notes later that night. Just don't let the momentum that you've built fall off, okay? And one of the ways you can do this is by forming study groups. It's great to learn from different perspectives. It's great to learn from different people. If you don't like studying in groups, that's fine. Just make sure that you're keeping up with the content. You're not letting it fall off. And also a good study habit is to make sure that you use your resources. We have on-campus tutoring. There's office hours. There's a lot of ways that you can keep that momentum going. And you also want to take breaks. So one thing that I do personally when I study is I will lock in for a good, 20 minutes. I won't drift off, you gotta fight that urge. You don't want to get distracted, but after 20 minutes, if you feel yourself begin to drift off, just let it happen. Take a 5-minute break and then hop back in. Lock in for another 20 minutes. That's a good way, to manage your study. Now let's talk about study time. So we're going to do some math again. Studying for 2 to 3 hours each week for every class hour is recommended. So let's say you follow this rule, 3 hours. Let's say you're full-time, you're doing 12 hours, 12 credit hours. So 12 times 3 is 36. So that means you should spend at least 36 hours a week studying. Now let's suppose that you even have a job on top of that. Let's say you're a work study, you got 19 hours. So the 19 plus 36, that's a lot of your week taken up. 36 hours studying, I'm going to be honest, is a lot. So just make sure that you're studying as much as you're able and as much as you are comfortable. This right here, the 2 to 3 hours a week, is just, a general thing. It might be more for some subjects. Let's say you're really good at math, but, biology is kind of lagging right there. You just got to find that balance. You might want to put the math down a little bit, put some more time into biology. You just got to make sure that you find that balance. So, they do say 2 to 3 hours a week. But what I would have to say to you is, just make sure that you're studying as much as you're able and as much as you're comfortable. Just make sure that you find that good balance. You don't want to be overworking yourself. And you also don't want to be underworking yourself, Just make sure that you're in that equilibrium right there. Find the good schedule. That brings me to my second point, creating a consistent study schedule. If you create a consistent study schedule, it'll help you manage your time better. And that's how you're going to find that equilibrium. You got to manage your time. And when you do study, you want to make sure it's in a good studying environment. You want to find someplace quiet, with minimal distractions. If you prefer loud places, you got to do you, but just make sure that it's a good environment. We have some pretty good places here at PAC on campus. We have the tutoring centers, STEM Center, the Math Center, and the Science Center. We have the library. The library is a pretty nice place if you haven't checked it out. It's on the second floor of Ozuna. And you could also study at home, wherever else you got to go. Just make sure that you're finding a good environment, you're keeping that consistent schedule, and that you're comfortable with it. Now we're going to talk about practice. And this is one of the most important things that we're going to talk about today. Here are some questions. You want to ask them to yourself again. Pause and think about them. And let's get into it. So this first bullet point right here, I've heard it in practically every math class that I've been enrolled in. Every math class that I've been in as an embedded tutor, I've heard this. Math is not a spectator sport. To learn math is to do math. So the only way that you're going to get better at math is by doing the math. You got to make sure that you're taking that pencil and you're putting it to the paper. So another little story, let's think about a piano player. The piano player doesn't only get better by listening to other players. The piano player also gets better by taking their fingers and putting them on the keys and doing that work. The same thing for someone enrolled in a math class. You want to make sure that you're taking your pencil and you're applying those formulas. You're applying those processes. That's really the only way to do it. You also want to make sure that you're doing as many problems as you can. If there are textbook problems, you might want to try them. If your professor gives you review problems, you definitely want to try those. And now I'm not saying that you have to do every single one. If you see a problem and you know how to do it, that's okay. You don't really have to do it. What I would recommend is if you're given an overload of questions, go through each one, go through number 1 and say, start it. If you know how to do it and you're 100% confident, move to the next one. Now you don't know how to do number 2. Now then you would work through it all the way and do it as much as you can. And you also want to make sure you do all your assignments. The best way to practice is do your homework. I know a lot of the courses here at PAC, they use My Math Lab. That one gives you immediate feedback. So the best way to do some problems is just by doing your homework. And you also don't want to wait till the last minute to begin assignments. You don't want to wait till the last week of the semester and you have 10 assignments due and you're cramming. That's not going to really benefit you as you go into your final. You want to do it piece by piece as they're due, week by week. And you want to break it down and take it in chunks, all right? It's like food. You got to make sure you chew your food before you swallow it. And here's another topic. When you're doing your work, you want to make sure that it's organized. Just like your notes are organized. I really recommend that you use pencil because the probability of you making a mistake is 1. We all make mistakes. It's bound to happen. And if you make a big mistake, you don't want to be in there scratching stuff out with a pen. So I recommend you use pencil. And if you got to use colors, you got to use colors. You want to use highlighters, just to help you connect information. That's good. So make sure you do what you got to do, right? And you also want to structure your work so you can look back at it. You don't want to make your work, kind of messy. And if you make a mistake and you look back, it's hard to track it. Make sure that you're using neat handwriting and stuff like that. And you also want to make sure you show all your work. You don't want to skip too many steps because, like I said, if you try to backtrack your work to find your mistake and you can't find it because you skipped too many steps, maybe the error you made was in the steps you skipped, you might have to go further back and start that problem again maybe. All of this is just just to minimize the amount of stress and pain on your part. And you don't really have to do this, but this is just like a tip. You want to annotate your work. Just make small comments or notes of any questions or things that you'll think of as you're doing your work. Now here is an example. I'm going to ask you a question. So just by first glance, which one do you think looks more readable and understandable? These are both of the same problem. They're both correct. I'm hoping they're correct. The left one uses colors. As you can see, the equal signs, they're lined up pretty good. We have the green arrows showing that we were factoring. Now we've split the solution in two. The problem on the right is doing the exact same thing, but this one doesn't have any color. It's a little bit off-centered. So which one do you think is easier to look at, easier to understand? Now this is not to say that you have to use color, that you have to, do things exactly like you see it here, but it's good just to organize your work. It's good really all the time to make sure you're aligning those equal signs so you can follow one equation through to its end. So these are just some things to think about, as you're doing your work. Am I able to look at it? Am I able to understand it? Am I able to readily identify the solutions to my problem? There's things to think about. And now we're going to talk about resources. So I want to talk to you about on-campus tutoring. We have tutoring in the STEM Center, which is Brazos 100. That's where I work. You can find us there. You can meet with one of our tutors. We do walk-in tutoring. If you want to email us and schedule an appointment, that's all good. We also offer the Math and the Writing Center. They tutor for mathematics and writing. Those are in Gutierrez 106. We have the Science Center. They tutor you in your sciences, your biologies, your anatomies, chemistries. They are in Frio 111. And those are in-person tutoring. All of the centers also offer Zoom tutoring. So if you want to meet with a tutor and you're not available to make it in person, you can kind of set that up with one of the centers and we can meet with you through Zoom during our hours. That's fine. Another thing that we offer is BrainFuse. That's an online tutoring service. If you have any questions about that, you can email one of the centers and we can help you with that. but that's online and it should be available through your Canvas course. Now here on the right are some online resources that I've put together. These are things that I've used and I've seen a lot of students use. The first one is the Organic Chemistry Tutor, and despite the name, the Organic Chemistry Tutor offers tons and tons of videos for math. And we're talking algebra all the way to calculus. And that is a pretty good option. And if you're watching this and you're not doing a math class, the Organic Chemistry Tutor offers for a lot of other subjects. So definitely check that one out. It's on YouTube and it's free. We also have Khan Academy, which is a classic. Everyone knows Khan Academy. Check that one out too. Also offers a lot of subjects. And calculus.org is one, that I've seen. If you're taking calculus, that's a good one to check out. Now, here are 5 things that I want you to take away. I know that I have been talking a lot. I've been talking for like 21 minutes. Here are 5 keys to maximizing your success. Number 1, really important one you always want to practice. Remember what I said about the piano player? You want to put your pencil to the paper and you want to apply those formulas and those processes. Number 2, another really important one, tutoring in office hours. There are tutors that are ready to help you, and I'm sure your professor is also ready to help you. You want to use those hours as much as you can. Number 3, study and review. 4, attend class. And 5, use your resources. If you do each of these 5 things, you will be able to feel more confident and ideally be more successful. So just think about these 5 things as you go into your math classes this semester, even if you're in it right now. Just think about these 5 things. And these things also apply, in general to any course. To maximize your success, you want to do these 5 things. All right? Now I'm going to leave you here with a quote. I had seen this in a textbook that I was taking. I believe it was for a proofs class that I took. When learning any mathematical subject, it is not the least bit unusual to make mistakes along the way. In fact, part of learning mathematics is to learn from your mistakes and those of others. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend doing, your work in pencil, because we're bound to make mistakes. Everybody makes those mistakes. And the good thing about mistakes, what we can take away from them is, how we learn from them. And as you're doing your math, you're going to encounter these mistakes. You're going to feel like, oh, I'm not doing too good, or oh, this is really hard, The key thing is what you take away from those experiences. And part of math is learning from our mistakes. We see where we messed up, where we went wrong, and we're going to use that as momentum and as a fuel to take us to where we got to go. So thank you for watching. Those are just some tips, some strategies that you can use to maximize your success. If you have any other questions, my email is right here, jdeluna80@alamo.edu. I'm available for tutoring, and all the math courses here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you're in a math class right now, good luck. If you're going into finals, good luck. And if you're, starting your semester, good luck. Just good luck all around, and thank you all for watching.